you're still in the Kingdom Talk group, right?
Yes.
Okay. All right. That just went out. That's where I send it to when I go live. All right, and I will.
Okay, so I send this link to them, right?
Right.
Well, how do I send this to a text message?
Let me send it to you. You can just copy it.
I press down on it.
That right there goes to copy, then you can go in your
Oh,
text. So,
okay.
add your text messages. It's copied onto the clipboard now.
Okay. Okay. Never mind, Mom.
Okay.
Let me see what this is. Let me start copying.
You haven't gotten it? Did you copy it? Alright. You, no, it has to be exactly correct, the case and everything. So I'm gonna text it to you, because if you don't get it
Yeah.
right, it's gonna,
Yeah,
they won't
because
get
I'm
it.
having some difficulty here.
Okay. Respond. I'll just send you the link. You want, yeah, there you go.
You just send it to me?
Right, yes, ma'am.
Oh, Maud, I'm not on now, am I?
It's,
Put me on right now. I'm texting and everything. isn't what he's trying to look up.
And shall see them.
subject for tonight is what every woman wants to find in the man Yahuwah Elohim has determined for her, and what every man should identify in her. Again, the subject for tonight is what every woman wants to find in the man Yahuwah Elohim has determined for her specifically, and what every man should identify in her. We're going to begin with the set-apart book, and the set-apart book specifically states that Elohim created the man in his image. In the image of Elohim, he created him. Male and female, he created them. Let's turn to Genesis chapter 1, verse 27. Genesis chapter 1, verse 27. The scriptures say that Elohim created the man in his image. In the image of Elohim, he created him. I'm putting emphasis on him. He created him. Genesis 1:27 part B, it states, male and female, he created them. He first begins by saying he created him. And then part B says in Genesis 1:27, male and female, he created them. So it makes it very curious as to why in Genesis 1:27, the scriptures begin with him in part A and then them in part B. Well, I need to take you through a scenario here in the book of Genesis. Genesis is about recreation. It is not about creation. Elohim, according to your document that you have in front of you, if you take a look at that, it begins by saying under Genesis 1:27 in the document, Elohim separated and divided. He separated or divided things on each day. So days 1 through 7, Elohim is separating. Elohim is dividing things on each day. That's days 1 through 7. However, Elohim's final deliberate act of separation was the 7th day. That was the final deliberate act of separation on the 7th day. Yet, Yahuwah Elohim's final act of separation in regard to creation was Eve from Adam. I'm going to repeat that one more time. It makes it very curious. First he says him, then he says them. Elohim separated and divided things on each day. Days 1 through 7. So day 1, day 2, day 3, day 4, day 5, day 6, day 7. Elohim is separating, or he's dividing. However, Elohim's final, deliberate, intentional act of separation was the 7th day. Yet, Yahuwah Elohim's final act of separation in regard to creation was Eve from Adam. Let me give you the Hebrew name for Eve. C-H-U-A-H. 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 For those of you who do have the Sefer Scriptures, that is chapter 4, verse 1, where you will see the name Chua, his woman. Hua. C-H-U-A-H. in Genesis 4:1. If you have the Sefer scriptures. All right, let's take a look. Let's go to Genesis 1:4. I need to prove to you about the separation prior to us really understanding what every woman wants to find in the man Yahuwah Elohim has determined for her, and what every man should identify in her. I have to have some prerequisites that are going to be deliberately set in place. So I have to prove to you that through days 1 through 7, there is separation and there's division. And how does this apply to Hua and Adam? Amen? Amen. All right, let's look at day 1. Let's go to Genesis 1:4. Genesis 1:4 says the following. And Elohim saw the light, that it was good. And Elohim separated the light from the darkness. What did he separate? Light from darkness. All right, so that's day 1. But I need to have a prerequisite. So, day 1, I'm at the top of page 2 on your transcript. Day 1, Genesis 1:4, he separates light from darkness. Let's go to day 2. That's Genesis chapter 1, verses 6 and 7. Genesis chapter 1, verses 6 and 7. And Elohim said, let an expanse come to be in the midst of the waters, and let it separate the waters from the waters. And Elohim made the expanse and separated the waters which were under the expanse from the waters which were above the expanse, and it came to be so. So on day 2, what is he separating? Waters from waters. All right. I have to prove without any doubt that he is separating and dividing. Amen? Day 3, Genesis chapter 1, verses 9 and 10. Genesis chapter 1, verses 9 and 10. And Elohim said, let the waters under the heavens be gathered where? Together into one place, and let the dry land appear. And it came to be so. Verse 10. And Elohim called the dry land earth, and the collection of the waters he called seas. And Elohim saw that it was good. On day 3, what is he doing? He is separating the waters from the dry land, or we could say the seas from haaretz, from earth. The seas from eretz. So he's separating the waters from the dry land, or we may say seas from earth. That's day 3. Now I'm on the top of page 3 according to your document. I have to prove without a reasonable doubt that there was separation those 7 days. And how does this equate to Adam and Hua? Amen?
Amen.
Day 4, Genesis 1:14. Day 4, Genesis 1:14. And Elohim said, let the lights come to be where? In the expanse of the heavens, to separate the day from the night. And let them be for what? Signs, and for appointed times, and for days and years. So what is he separating on day 4? Day and night. Amen. Day 5. We're going to commence with Genesis 1:20. The plot will thicken in a moment. Amen. Genesis chapter 1, verse 20. And Elohim said, let the waters teem with shoals of living things, and let birds fly above the earth on the face of the expanse of where? Of the heavens, or above the heavens. Amen. What is he separating? The creatures in the what? Waters, from the birds in the expanse. This is what he is doing on day what? 5. So he is separating, he's making a distinction. He's making a division between the creatures in the waters from the birds in the expanse. You're going to get this in a few moments. because this is a demonstrable act of his sovereignty, but he's also going to show how the demonstrable act of his sovereignty moves over into the greatest act of all creation. So in day 5, we're going to continue. Let's go to verse 24. Genesis chapter 1, verse 24. And Elohim, I'm sorry?
What the filling was for day 5?
Creatures in the waters, from birds in the expanse. You're quite welcome. Verse 24. Day 5, Genesis 1:24. We are on page 3 of your document. And Elohim said, let the earth bring forth the living being according to its what? Kind. Livestock and creeping creatures and beasts of the earth according to its what? Kind. And it came to be what? So. And Elohim made the beasts of the earth according to its what? Kind. Livestock according to its what? Kind. And all that creep on the earth according to its what? Kind. And Elohim saw that it was good. What is he separating and dividing on that day? Livestock and creeping creatures and beasts. Livestock and creeping creatures and beasts. Again, he is separating livestock and creeping creatures and beasts. Amen?
Amen.
Amen. So he's now identifying with the distinction of 3 different things on day 5. We're getting ready to move to day 6. We're at the top of page 4, day 6. Amen? And Elohim created. And Elohim created, or bara. He created man in his own image. In the image of Elohim, he created him. Male and female created he them. I'm going to say that one more time, because the pattern has not become very evident. Day 6, Genesis 1:27. And Elohim created, bara, man in his own image. In the image of Elohim, he created him what? Male and female. But first he says he created man in his own image. In the image of Elohim, he created him. Then he says male and female created he them. What is he? There is a definite distinction. Male and what? Female. Amen. All right? So we have male and female. That's a distinction on day 6. Day 7. I'm on page 4 of your document. Day 7. Genesis chapter 2, verse 3. Genesis chapter 2, verse 3. Day what? 7. And God. What should I have there? Elohim. It is, whenever you see God, it is Elohim. Whenever you see Lord, it is Yahuwah. And Elohim, what did he do on the 7th day? He blessed that 7th day. And what else did he do with that 7th day?
Sanctified it.
He sanctified it, or he set it apart. All right? Is he still dividing?
No.
Well, let's see. And he sanctified it. He's speaking specifically of what day? The 7th day. Because that in it he had what? Rested. That means he ceased from having any type of collaboration with material things. He ceased from working. He ceased from putting his hand to those things in the world. Amen? He rested from all his work. Not that he was exhausted. He ceased. Which Elohim created and made. What is he separating on day 7? Absolutely. The 7th day, or the Shabbat, from all other days. That day is set apart. Okay. All right. Okay. Let's go back. Let's go back. Let's go back, because I've got to make a strong statement here. Go back to your page 1. The subject for tonight is what every woman wants to find in the man Yahuwah Elohim has determined for her, and what every man should identify in her. The Father makes it very explicit. In the set-apart book, in Genesis 1 and 27, on page 1 of your document, specifically states that Elohim created the man, how? In his what? Image. Talk back to me. In the image of Elohim, he created him. Him is highlighted for a reason. He created him. Male and female, he created what? Them. There's something happening there. He says him, and then he says what? Them. All right. We know that Eve's name, if you have the Sefer Scriptures, Eve's name is spelled C-H-U-A-H. C-H-U-A-H. The C is silent, so it is Hua. Her name is Hua. C-H-U-A-H. On day 1, what did Elohim separate?
The light from the darkness.
Very good. Use your document if you can. Day 2, what did he separate? We're at the top of page 2. Waters from
the water.
Waters from waters. Very good. Day 3, what did he separate?
The waters in the dry land.
Dry land. The water from the dry land, or the seas from Eretz, earth. Very good. Day 4, I'm at the top of page 3. What did he separate on day 4? Day and night. Excellent. Day 5, what did he separate in verse 20?
Creatures in the
Waters from the birds in the expanse. Is he making a distinction? Yes, he is. That's why to create a hybrid is against the will of Elohim. To mix a certain animal with another animal is certain plants with certain plants. Making a hybrid is against the ways of Elohim. Day 5, according to verse 24 and 25, what did he separate on that day? Livestock, creeping creatures, and beasts. Excellent. You're at the top of page 4 in your document. Day 6 in Genesis 1:27. What is the distinction here? Male and female. Is there a pattern? Yes. Day 7 in Genesis 2 and 3. What is he separating? What is he making a distinction between? The seventh day of the Sabbath from all other days. All right. Are we in agreement?
Yes.
That there is a pattern. There's so much of a pattern that he says man and then he says male and female. All right. This is the Sefer. This is the Sefer. The Sefer is a set-apart book. If you would like to determine how you can get your hands on this particular scriptures, on these scriptures, please speak to me afterwards, because the names are incredibly indicated within the scriptures. I'm not calling it a Bible. I'm calling it the Kodesh scriptures, the set-apart scriptures. Amen?
Amen.
All right. Without fulfilling, and I want you to hear this, please take some notations. Without fulfilling the image of Elohim, without fulfilling the image of Elohim, man forfeits his rank. And so forth, and so he is not distinctively nor intrinsically and inherently different from other creatures. When man does not fulfill his governmental right to walk in the image of Elohim, what does he do? He forfeits his rank. So he no longer becomes inherently different than other creatures. In the Hebrew text, Adam is not at first specifically referred to as a male. Let's get this distinction. In the Hebrew text, Adam is not at first specifically referred to as a male. I want that to sink in a little bit. He is not. He is referred to as a man, or in some scriptures, Adam, but he is not specifically referred to as a male. Not at first, he isn't. Look at verse 21, Genesis 2:21. Genesis chapter 2, verse 21. So Yahuwah Elohim caused a deep sleep to fall upon man. The Father still has not identified man as male. And he slept. Who slept? The man. And he took one of his ribs and closed up the flesh instead thereof. This is being communicated to all of mankind in Genesis 2:21. But this is what makes this very interesting. Here it is, the 10th time that Yahuwah Elohim is used together. Yahuwah Elohim is used together in the scriptures when an operation is about to be performed upon man. That's very significant. Okay, I'm going to say this more. It's the 10th time Yahuwah Elohim is used together in the scripture when an operation is about to be performed upon man. Okay. What do you mean? What do you mean by that? Why is that significant? Okay, we're going to take a walk through scripture. So I need to prove to you that by the time an operation is getting ready to take place in man, Yahuwah Elohim, not Yahuwah not his name by himself, nor Elohim by itself, but Yahuwah Elohim, for the very first time, is used together, for the 10th time, when there's about to be an operation performed upon man. Let's go to Genesis chapter 2, verse 4. I need to prove to you that it is the 10th time. Genesis chapter 2, verse 4. Okay. Now, Genesis chapter 2, verse 4. Is everyone with me? Genesis chapter 2, verse 4. These are the generations of the heavens and of the earth when they were created in the day that Yahuwah Elohim made the earth and the heavens. This is the first time that Yahuwah Elohim is written together. That's in Genesis chapter 2, verse 4. So that's the first time. Amen? Let's go to verse 5. I need a reader for verse 5, please.
And,
No.
ev-
Go ahead.
Mhm.
Go ahead. Go ahead. Go ahead.
and every plant of the field before it was in the earth, and every herb of the field before it grew. For Yahuwah Elohim had not caused it to rain upon the earth, and there was not a man to till the ground.
All right. Is that the second time?
Yes.
Okay. That's the second time. Yahuwah Elohim is written in this manner. Let's go to verse 7. I need a reader for verse 7, please.
And Yahuwah Elohim formed the man out of dust from the ground and breathed into his nostrils breath of lives. Lives.
Yes, the breath of lives.
And the man became a living being.
Yes, he is the Ruach of lives.
Breath of life.
Breath of lives. That is found in the Scriptures Bible. He is the breath of lives. He is the ruach of lives. Amen? Isn't that very interesting? Not just the breath of life, but the breath of lives. That means all life is attributed to his ruach being breathed into mankind. Amen?
Every living being came.
Amen. All right. Let's look at Genesis chapter 2, verse 8. I need a reader.
And Yahweh Elohim planted a garden in Eden to the east, and there he put the man whom he had formed.
Amen. All right. So that's the fourth time. Let's go to verse 9. I need a reader for verse 9.
Don't jump at the
Amen.
same time. And out of the ground Yahweh Elohim made every tree grow that is pleasant to the sight and good for food, with the tree of life in the midst of the garden, and the tree of the knowledge of good and evil.
Amen. So what time, what number is that?
Number
That's the
5.
fifth time. Amen. All right. Let's go to Genesis chapter 2, verse 15. I need a reader. Yes, Clary?
And Yahuwah Elohim took the man and put him in the Garden of Eden to work it and to guard it.
Amen. Let's go to verse 16. Clary?
And Yahuwah Elohim commanded the man, saying, Eat of every tree of the garden. Keep going. But do not eat of the tree of knowledge and good and evil. For in the day that you eat of it, you shall certainly die.
All right, so we know that in verse 16, now that is the 7th time that Yahuwah Elohim is mentioned in Scripture. Let's go to verse 18. I need a reader, please.
And Yahuwah Elohim said, It is not good for a man to be alone.
Amen.
I am going to make a helper for him
Amen.
as his counterpart.
Amen.
Hallelujah.
Amen.
Amen.
So that's verse 18. Let's look at verse 19. I need a reader for verse 19. Claire, if you want to keep on, or Moan, or anyone else, any other ambassador, you may commence.
And from the ground Yahuwah Elohim formed every beast of the field and every bird of the heavens, and brought them to the man to see what he would call them. And whatever the man called each living being, that is its name. That was its name.
Amen. All right. Oh, how many times is this?
It's a 9.
9 times. Okay. Let's go to verse 21. I need a reader. Moan, please.
So Yahweh Elohim caused a deep sleep to fall on the man, and he slept. And he took one of his ribs and closed up the flesh in its place.
Amen. That's number 10. So by the 10th time, Yahuwah Elohim's name is, that Yahuwah is mentioned, in collaboration with Elohim, the plurality of his majesty,
Wow.
because he is Echad, he is one, he is not Trinity. He is one, he is not Trinity. The number 10 is divine order and completed cycle. He's getting ready to do something magnificent.
Number 10.
The number 10 is divine order, and completed cycle.
I mean, I was just looking at that.
Now,
here.
completed cycle, also meaning completed progression, also meaning progress, also meaning a development. What is Yahuwah Elohim doing? He is orchestrating in his sovereignty another dimension of divine order and completed cycle. This is a completed progression because he is still working. This is a progress, and it is also a development based on his accumulated sovereignty. He has every legal right to administer what he divinely orchestrates in the earth, and he's going to do it by the time his name is written in Torah the 10th time. And what does he do? So Yahuwah Elohim caused a deep sleep to fall upon man, And he slept, and he took one of his ribs, closed up the flesh instead thereof. Go to page 5 at the top of your document. You're going to see the 10th letter of the Hebrew alphabet in your document. Yod. It is a yod. It is the 10th letter of the Hebrew alphabet. The Hebrew definition of yod includes arm, hand, work, and deed. The Hebrew definition of yod includes number 1, arm, number 2, hand, number 3, work, and number 4, deed. That's very
How
interesting.
fitting.
That's very interesting. Yes, Mo, what were you gonna say?
I was saying is that's what I was looking at when you were talking about the 10th time. And I saw it and I went to look at what 10 means for Hebrew, and it shows that exactly what you're talking about: arm, hand, work, deed.
Amen.
And woman is a helpmeet.
Right, absolutely. And here is the Father.
Means as a helper. Yeah.
That's right. And here is the Father putting him to sleep, but he doesn't mention the woman yet.
No.
But although Yahuwah Elohim is mentioned the 10th time, it speaks of what? Completion and what else? Divine order. Divine order.
And completed cycle.
Completed cycle. Remember, order, order, if I was to draw a picture of order, it would be a circle in Hebrew. If I was to draw a picture of order, it would be a complete circle in Hebrew. Amen? And it's continuous, meaning his order is continuous. It never ends. You cannot even find the beginning nor the end, although he is the beginning and the end. He's the Aleph and the Tav. Amen? Verse 21. Do you see verse 21?
Yeah.
Genesis 2:21 on your document. So Yahuwah Elohim caused a deep sleep. The Hebrew word for deep sleep is tardema. I will spell it for you. Tardemah. Deep sleep is one word in Hebrew. Tardemah. Tardema. Tardema in Hebrew also in English, it means trance, lethargy, to sleep heavily and silently. Tardema in English means trance, lethargy, sleep heavily, and silently. You can find Tardema in Strong's number 8639. Strong's 8639. So Tardema fell upon man. The Father has not identified man as a male yet. Tardema, this trance, the lethargy, this sleep that is so heavy and silent has now fallen upon man, and he slept. And he took one of his ribs and closed up the flesh in its place. Do you see the word caused on your document? Turn to page 6. That's the next page. You see the word caused at the top of your document. The top of page 6. Amen? All right. Cause includes 3 Hebrew letters. The first one, now what I want you to do is actually take your alphabet chart. Take your alphabet chart, and you're going to look down where it says early script until you see an early script or a pictograph that looks like the pictograph on your far right. What letter is that?
Nun.
Nun, very good. Nun. It's a sprouting seed. Nun also means offspring, and it also means heir. So when the Father causes man to go into the sleep, caused includes nun, offspring and heir. The second letter in the word caused, I want you to look on your alphabet chart. I want you to find this pictograph.
Pay.
Pay, mouth. It not only means mouth, but it also means speak, but it also means blow. How is Yahuwah Elohim causing man to fall into a deep sleep? The last letter in caused is instruct. Which pictograph is that?
It's a lamed.
It's a lamed. Lamed. Very good. It's a shepherd's staff, but it also means to goad. To goad. It is a shepherd's staff, but it also means to instruct. If you were to take Nun, Pei, and Lamed together, knowing that man is the offspring and heir of our Father, what did the Father do that would have caused Adam to fall into a deep sleep? The Ruach. Through his Ruach, he not only blew his Ruach on him, but he was also instructing him. He could have spoken to him by the Ruach, amen, and instructed him. And was man obedient? Yes, he was. So Yahuwah spoke instruction to his heir. Yahuwah spoke instruction to his heir. And here we have man who is now in a trance, he's lethargic, and he's sleeping heavily. Amen? This is the depth of obedience of man that our Father, through his Spirit, instructs him. But at that time, man had no choice. The power and the sovereignty of even his instruction would cause a man to fall asleep. Amen?
Amen.
Amen.
That makes me feel a lot better.
And that makes you feel a lot better. Why? Amen. Can he instruct you to go to sleep?
Yes.
Yes, he can. He can instruct you to go to sleep by speaking up to him, or even through the concert of moving his ruach upon a man, because we are the offspring and heir of Yahuwah Elohim. Amen?
Amen.
But it says he took one of his ribs. And he took one of his ribs and closed up the flesh instead thereof. All right, that's interesting. Yahuwah Elohim took how many ribs? One rib. That word in Hebrew is selah. Selah. T-S-E-L-A. The transliteration for selah is side. S-I-D-E. S-I-D-E.
Okay.
Rib is not a transliteration. He literally took the side of Abram. The side of man. Because he has not identified him as a male, so he took the side of man. If I were to ask a woman right now, what makes this so fascinating that the Father could put a man to sleep by his ruach, perform an operation in divine order and perfection, and then begin to do something that would be so demonstratively awesome to a man, so that out of a man comes someone in whom he would spend the rest of his life with?
Mm.
What makes this so operative and so conclusive? It's a lot to ponder on, isn't it? Here Yahuwah Elohim took one side of man, not one rib. He took one side of man. Go to the top of page 7 in your document. The Hebrew letter Sadi. If you look here for the Hebrew letter on here, on your chart, you're going to look for the Hebrew letter Sadeh. It is actually the numerical value of 90. Sadeh, T-S-A-D-E. It is the numerical value 90. What is that a pictograph of?
That's
What is that? Sadi, 90. 90. What is that a picture of? A man on his side. A man on his side. Wait a minute. What did you say?
Oh, now
You
that's what go back in history.
no, but it did. That's the first thing I thought about.
Yeah, exactly.
Too.
Yeah.
where's
The,
it
the
look like?
sprouting seed too, the one with
Answer the
the.
question.
Yeah.
Yes.
But you know, where
Oh, I
I'm
see.
not the
Ireland,
same
I
thing.
need him.
Yeah. Where's Ira when you need?
When you asked you, so what does it look like?
What does it look
A
like?
man. It does look like that. It is but it's actually a man on his side. Sadeh.
Yeah. Yeah.
Sadeh. It's a man on his side. So what does this mean? The Hebrew letter Sadeh, which is a man on his side, is the first letter in what? Side. I'm going to say it one more time. The Hebrew letter Sadeh, which is a picture of a man on his side, is the first letter in Saleh. What is Saleh? Side. All right. So here, a man on his side, the father starts dealing with the man on his side or the side chamber of a man. The side chamber of a man. So Yahuwah Elohim took one side or the side chamber or a compartment of a man. This is what he is doing. There is something that a woman desires in a man, and there's something inherently that a man should be able to identify in a woman.
Mm-hmm.
Watch closely. And the side which Yahuwah Elohim had taken from the man, he made into a woman. Now that word woman should really be womb man. W-O-M-B-M-A-N. Womb man. Because inside of man, or the side of man, on the side of man was who? The woman. But he could not relate to her because she's there, but she's on his side. She's on the side of man. She's within him, but on the side. And he brought her to the man. Watch this. If there's a woman and she's right here on your what? Side. Can you really have a relationship with her if she's right here? And there's no face-to-face interaction?
But you gotta get rid.
What? What happened?
No, I saw that. I'm sorry, but my head just went to
Somewhere else?
Yeah, that woman on the side, she right there. You can't have a relationship because she's just nagging right there.
But wait a minute. But she was there the whole time.
Mhm.
She was there the whole time.
Yeah.
That's why the father has not identified him as male.
Right.
Because
it's
she's
both
there.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're both there.
Mhm.
But is he having a relationship with her? There's no relationship with her yet. That what he does is he extracts her out of the man. She is a woman. She's more, now he brings her to the man. The reason why he brings her to the man is because now they're face to face. They're face to face. How is intimacy done? Face to face. That's why, let me say this. If my to-be husband is right here, and I'm always looking in this direction, and he's right here.
Yeah.
He's right here. I'm not having a relationship with him.
That's right.
I am not having a relationship with him. He's here. That's why you can have, that's why in a courtship or even in a marriage, there's got to be what? Face to face. There's got to be why? Moshe was known as one of the greatest prophets. Why? Because he had what type of interaction? He had face-to-face interaction. She was there all the time. But even prior to him doing this, he still needed a helpmeet, and he didn't even know the helpmeet was right there. The helpmeet was already there. How is that so? Because when a man or a woman come together as one, as Echad, it is the ultimate decision of Yahuwah Elohim to ensure that he is the one that is going to provide the authorization for courtship and the authorization for marriage. But as long as he has not been given his, not operating in his own sovereign right, and someone operates in their own permissive will, then you're still not allowing Yahuwah Elohim to bring together what should be face to face. There was no relationship, and we don't know how long Adam was by him, seemingly, we don't know how long man was in that place where there was no helpmeet. It was not until the Father put him into a what? Sleep. What does that sleep represent?
Teaching, instruction.
Teaching and instruction. The scripture says, even in the book of Job, that in slumbering and sleep, Yahuwah will speak to man, and he will hide pride from man and remove him from what he wants to do. Here is the Father bringing this woman before him. Look at, we're still on page 7. And Yahuwah Elohim formed the man out of the dust. Yahuwah Elohim formed man. That word formed is yatsar, Y-A-T-S-A-R. He formed him out of the dust, which is afar. He formed him out of the dust. Now I'm going to explain that in a minute. When he forms man, which is yatsar, Y-A-T-S-A-R, he forms the man out of the dust. Dust is afar, A-P-H-A-R, from the ground. This is in Genesis 2:7. In Genesis 2:7, Yahuwah Elohim formed, or yatsar, the man out of afar, the dust from the ground, and breathed into his nostrils breath of lives. And the man became a living being. Well, this is in Genesis 2:7. But there is no mention that he is male. So when man was formed a yatsar, what was the Father doing? When the Father forms a yatsar, what he was doing to the man was squeezing him. He's squeezing him from afar. He's squeezing him from the dust. This is what he does to a man. He squeezed him from afar, from the dust. And what afar also means, he throws dust upon. Afar means to throw dust upon. And I'm going to explain to you what that means in a minute. But he throws dust upon. That's why what a woman is looking for in a man is a man that is being completely formed, or yatsar, being squeezed by Yahuwah Elohim, like a potter that will throw a bowl or a plate or a mug on the wheel. Okay, let me go back. Listen. When man was formed, it is yatsar, Y-A-T-S-A-R. This is forming. You see this right here? This is forming. This is forming. Forming a man is through touch, growth, and development. This is forming a man. It's squeezing him. Like a potter would be applied to a man. So when he formed Adam, that's why before a man gets married, or even in a marital relationship, there's the forming of that man. That man is being squeezed. He is being formed as a potter that will throw a bowl or a plate or a mug on the wheel. All right, let me give you an example. When I say throwing a plate on a wheel, or throwing a mug on a wheel, or throwing a bowl on a wheel, what that means is you have an actual wheel like this. Then what you do, you actually throw, in potter's terms, when you throw a plate on a wheel or throw a bowl on a wheel, like a thar means to throw dust upon. What is the Father doing? When you throw a plate or a bowl on a wheel, what are you doing? You're actually just putting clay on it. That's all that means. So when a potter is making something out of something that is marred, or making something out of clay, he's going to throw a plate on the wheel. That means to throw a plate is the process of throwing the clay on the wheel. So it's the time the clay touches the wheel until the time the wheel stops. That's what it means. So in a marital relationship, and even in a courtship, what the Father will do prior to marriage or prior to that courtship, what that man should allow the Father to do is to form him. To form is through touch, to form is through development, and it is a squeezing of a man. That's what he did with Adam. He distinctively formed him in a different way. Why? And he threw dust. That means there was a wheel that had to have been present in the forming of Adam. The same thing in our lives, in a marital relationship, in a courtship, in a man. There is a man that is put on a wheel, and as long as that man maintains being on that wheel, that man is thrown on that wheel. That's the time when that man is put on the wheel until the time that wheel stops. Throwing is the activity of shaping the clay on the potter's wheel. He has to shape a man on the potter's wheel. How would a woman know that a man is being squeezed or formed on that potter's wheel? Because of his submission to Yahuwah. Because by the submission to Yahuwah. Why? Because the clay has no legal right, and it does not operate in any type of sovereignty to tell the potter how he should be designed. That's why he says, I formed man. Well, who was he forming? Man. He didn't say he formed male, he formed man. He threw dust. That means that man was in a position where what the Father was doing in the beginning of time was making this man eligible for his woman.
Amen.
Do we understand? If a woman cannot discern that a man has been, what? Thrown on the wheel, then she will prematurely try to get him off the wheel and lure him when the Father is not done fashioning him nor forming him. That's why a woman must be able to discern when the Father is dealing specifically with her husband or dealing specifically with a man she is courting. Let the Father have his time where he's able to throw the man on the wheel. Do we understand one another?
Yes, indeed.
Let it be. What is happening while he's on the wheel? What's happening while he's on the wheel? He's being formed, but what's right?
He's
but
being
what,
shaped.
He's being
pressed
shaped.
and pulled
He's
and
being pressed.
and pulled
Pressure.
and
Application of pressure.
Application of pressure, absolutely. What does the application of pressure do to a man? What does the application of pressure do to a man when a man is thrown on a wheel as clay? What is happening to him? Somebody talk back to me. It creates change. Is it uncomfortable? Absolutely. But what is the Father doing? He is squeezing him so that the man will be more mobile and more exact and more positioned as the man that Yahuwah Elohim has determined for his life. May I propose something here at this governmental meeting? Don't deny the Father access to squeeze you. I'm speaking to the men, because at that point he actually has you on, he has actually thrown you on the wheel. The only thing you can do is say thank you, hallelujah, this is a benevolent act of my Father. And the wisdom of a wife, or the wisdom of one who will eventually be the wife, is to allow the squeezing to take place. Don't criticize him, don't belittle him, because he's being formed, he's being squeezed. And it is one of the most uncomfortable places for any married man to be, or for any man that's in a courtship. Let the Father do what the Father wants to do with him. Why? Because by the time the Father says, I'm done, the wheel stops and you will see a greater man than you've ever seen before. That's why every man needs to marry a wise woman. Why? Why? Because she should be able to discern when he's being squeezed. And it almost seems like torture. It almost seems like, Father, don't you hear me? Don't you know I'm calling on you? Don't you understand? I'm like between a rock and a hard place. He understands. But that's Yatsar. Let him have his way and be glad. Hallelujah. Hallelujah. He was doing this to man prior to man meeting the woman. That's why some men meet someone too prematurely, because the Father did not take you off that wheel. Your assignment on the wheel still wasn't completed. So what does he have to do? He's got to catch you at another episode in your life. Do we understand one another? I pray this is bringing some clarity. You're on the wheel. He has thrown you on there like a potter throws a plate, he throws a bowl, and throws a mug. The process is known as throwing pottery. You go to anyone that operates as a potter, they'll say, I'm throwing pottery. I'm throwing clay. It's called throwing pottery, throwing clay.
Bless you.
Any comments?
And so clay, what's the particle in clay?
Dirt.
What
Dust.
part like sand is dirt?
Yeah. It's like, yeah.
So
So there was a significant difference between the way man was engineered by Yahuwah Elohim opposed to the way the womb man was engineered. We're not engineered like a man. But we should understand how the Father deals with men, or deals with man. Don't raise your hand, but if you're being squeezed now, that's because you're in a designated location. So what should the woman be doing?
Praying.
Praying. Why? Because that man is in a place called Yatsar. By the time that woman was presented to Adam, he said, this is bone of my bone
Flesh.
and flesh of my flesh.
Yeah.
That means that man was able to identify his Isha because he was in the right state, and the right state where he was squeezed so much that his discernment was so sharp, he knew who she was. And it was the first time he had ever seen her, although she was on his side. Do we understand?
Crystal clear.
Do we understand? All right. Now, do we understand?
Yes, ma'am.
That means that your husband could be right on the side. You and your husband are side by side, or future husband side by side. All right? That's not bad at first. But that means there's some things that have to be initiated within him prior to the woman being presented to him. Women, you must understand when a man is at a greater maturity state or mature state. Because even when the father tells him go to sleep, he'll do it. Something as simplistic as that. The man was formed, that is Yatsah. But let me tell you about the woman. The woman was made.
She was made from that.
She was Banah, B-A-N-A-H. The word Banah, now this is really interesting because the word Banah, the woman was made, and that word made is Banah. The word Banah is used for building a house.
The womb.
Right. The word Banah is also used for building a house. So the woman was made, which is Banah, B-A-N-A-H. But the word Banah, B-A-N-A-H, is also used for building a house or to construct. All right. Well, why is that important? Because doesn't it say in Scripture that a wise woman will what? Build her house. All right. Okay. So when a woman is being made by Yahuwah Elohim, a sign that she has been made, or the Father is making her, is that she will also build her what? House. She will not tear it down. So what is a man inherently desire in a woman? That she will build what? The house.
Very nice, right?
And what does a woman inherently desire in a man? That is going through the process of being formed so he will be legitimate in their right for Echad. But that takes a lot of discernment. Listen, there was a song that was sung many, many, many years ago. It said, "She's a brick house." You ever heard that song?
Oh, yeah.
She's a brick
She's a
house.
brick.
House. Can I tell you that brick, what that brick house means? That she was never made by Yah. She looked good, but she wasn't made by Yah. So that's why the outer, what did you say?
I said, I don't want no woman look like no brick. I'm sorry. I thank the Father for mine.
Right, but-
Hallelujah.
Solid.
Right.
Said a lot of
But wait a minute, but it's interesting that they use the word house.
Yeah,
That's
absolutely.
interesting that they use the word house, because when a woman is made, Banah, the word Banah is used for building a house. So what does that mean? That every man that is in courtship, you've got to make sure that she is legitimate enough, what? To do what eventually? Build a house.
Yeah.
It's also significant to a cap or temple, her temple.
Yes,
She's supposed to build her house
that's right,
and make it suitable for what is to come to her.
that's right.
Yes. the
But the-
incubator.
Right,
Ah.
but the builder of all things is Yahuwah. We can't legitimately do it. He says, I am the builder of all things. So that means that that woman submits to the building regimen of Yahuwah Elohim. Because he has the blueprint, his divine blueprint. We don't really have it. That's why when a man is squeezed and then a woman is made. So Yahuwah, so that means that Banah requires architectural skill. So Yahuwah Elohim made Eve. Hua. What did he make her? He made her a woman and wife and female. He made her a woman, wife, and female. That's why he says in Genesis, go back. Go back to Genesis 1:27. On your first page. Elohim created the man in his image, in the image of Elohim. He created him. He's only speaking about who? Man. But what was also included was the fact that male and female, he created them. So there was also separation. So he separated. He separated and then he made them Echad. They were originally Echad. Then he separated them and then he made them Echad again. Amen? Amen. He made them one.
But it's not good for man to be alone.
No, it is not. But based on, let's talk about what you did learn. Just for a moment. What did you learn?
Anyway.
Or what stands out? That's right. Banah is used for architectural structures, it's used for building. It's also used for sculpting. Amen.
Two things. Banah said more women should be doing construction instead of.
That's what you get.
Kind of messed the job application more women should be out building, skyscrapers.
Yeah.
That's true. Based on the definition of Banah.
You might be right, Ema. I agree.
Right, but wait a minute, no, I'm not saying literally. I'm saying figuratively, right? But figuratively, amen.
But it's interesting.
But you know what? Women do have the ability, they do have a lot of architectural skill. And they do have the ability to construct. Women do have the ability to multitask. Women do have the ability to think of things and putting them on different tiers. So that's very true. But Banah, so that means she can build.
She is a builder
She
by
is
nature.
a builder by nature.
Right. Part two of that is all those things you just said, although you didn't mention it earlier, the woman was a part of that will process, although she didn't know it. So that's why she would have those capabilities, because she was being molded at the same time while she was on that will as well. And then now, had he made them separate and did that, maybe that would have caused some type of, confusion, along the way. But I think by him making man first in his order, and then separating and presenting, a part of him back to her, he was able to recognize that this was a part of everything that I went through.
That's right.
This
She was
is-
already
She
there.
belongs to me.
Finished
That's
product.
And then at the same time, you said earlier, she should be able to identify you know, basically when he's, you know, going through things, you know, because
Yes.
she was a part of the will process, so she should be able to feel when he's being tugged and pulled and spun around, you know, by the Father, and she should be able to identify and then ultimately leads to prayer.
Mhm. Absolutely. You know, there's a collaboration or camaraderie that has happened, that has taken place. He was on that wheel. You know, he was thrown there. And that's why the women should be able to discern when he's on there.
Because he wasn't alone.
He's saying that they were on the wheel at the same time.
He was already there.
I mean,
She was already present. He did not take out his rib. The entire side of Adam, there the woman was already really there. That's why the Father never said he was a male initially. He said man. So even though he was on the wheel, she wasn't present per se, but there had to have
As a
been.
separate
Right, right,
person.
right. But the point that Carrie was making is that although he was on that wheel, and what he was saying, was that at the same time, she would be able to identify when he's going through, when he's being thrown on the wheel. This is discernment.
So she had some kind of connection with him,
She was
She,
inside of him.
she was already there.
They were
She-
one.
They were already one. That's why man wasn't male or female when he first created man. He called them man. That's why in Genesis 1:27, he said he created him. Male and female, he created them. So it was, he didn't say man was a male and man was a
Right,
female.
man reference,
No.
even all throughout the word, even now, not even in Genesis, but all throughout the word, it talks about, when it says, when he references man, it's not male, it's the man and woman,
Right.
it's all mankind,
That's
it's
why
us.
right. He's not being gender specific.
Right, no, he's talking about everything, and then where you're coming from, Mother Taylor, is understanding that, the woman was still with Adam, because the Father didn't separate her from him, prior to putting him on the wheel. The Father separated her from him when he was done molding and making Adam. Right, that was the last creation, the last thing that he did was after he made man, and man did all the work that he presented him to do, naming the animals, all that stuff. After everything was done, he said, okay, now it's not good for man to be alone. So because now he is done molding man and doing everything that he wants man to do. So he put him to sleep and gave him the instructions when he took Eve, Hawa, from his side and made her and then presented her back to him. And now they are complete together.
You see, when Adam was even naming the animals, every male animal had a female counterpart.
Exactly, you're right.
You see, so here is Adam, he's naming all the animals, and even scientifically, they were able to discern, or that he was able, probably within no time, to name all those animals, because his brain was so high powered, okay? So what happens is, he's seeing every male have a female counterpart. And that's when the Father said, there is no what?
Yeah, it's not good for man to be
It's
alone.
not good for man to be alone.
Right.
Okay, so the Father is identifying that even in a courtship or prior to a marriage, or even within a marriage, that a man can still be thrown on that potter's wheel. And women should be inherently discerning that when a man is going through that process. Do you know that some men, we talked about this before, some men will actually become very quiet. They'll become quiet. Why? Because the Father is dealing with them specifically. And this is where women should be very discerning, because at that point, the Father is specifically squeezing him. He is making him into a better template than he'd ever been before.
I don't think most women recognize.
That's why I need to be blessed by him from the beginning, because she designed to do what she do, and he designed to do what he do. So when he bring them together, they do what they do. They be able to understand one another. You understand what I'm saying? You kind of get what I'm saying. That's what I'm taking from that.
Right.
She was with him when he was going through everything, and she got some of that knowledge. And when he got through doing all he do, he laid him down because he seen everybody else prepared up, and he brought her out of him. And now she know her place is to make a house. And you know what I'm saying? Like, you know what they say about you give her brunch, she'll give you a baby, give her food, she'll give you a meal. You know
Right.
what
She's
I'm
an
saying?
incubator.
Right.
That's what she do.
Yeah, she multiplies.
That's what she was made to do.
That's her
But at that
function.
time, Eve was not aware, actually. She had not been made. So she wasn't aware.
I'm saying
But
once
she
he
wasn't,
stood him up.
she wasn't coherently aware, but there was a discernment that women have. See, that's why a woman doesn't have to literally go through something with a man, literally be there, but through discernment by the Ruach, she can relate and understand. That's why we shouldn't always think that you have to be present in a scenario in a person's life to be able to discern that there is something inherently that they must go through.
But I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
And then looking at their thing too, it's specific that, you know, the Bible says when a man, you know, you marry, you should leave your father and your mother and become one flesh. So she literally came from him. So although she never seen him, once she was formed and got to meet him, she probably, you know, whatever he felt at that time, everything was so pure, she should have been able to feel it. You know what I'm saying? At that time of being
Absolutely.
so proud. So if he was on the wheel, you know, 3,000 years before then, whenever the father decided to form her, you know, she was able to know, like, you know what I'm saying, this is, you know, I'm a part of that process. And I think he is able to quickly, without, you know, 0 seconds, identify her, because that was, you know what I'm saying, he's looking at his flesh. You know?
And what else is he looking at? He's looking at her spiritually, because we have to
Exactly.
understand that this was a spiritual endeavor.
Thank
He
you,
is
Father.
not looking, he
Exactly.
is not looking at
At
her
the
outer
flesh. That's right.
continents. He is and this is what trips up a lot of men.
That's right.
They're looking at the outer countenance of a woman, and they don't understand that this is really a spiritual.
That's exactly what I was gonna say.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Adam, listen, they were in glorified bodies, all right? Not the way we look right now. He is looking at her from such a high dimension of spirituality. And this is, and that's why when two come together, they're coming together spiritually first,
That's
and then they come together physically. That's the order.
Well, yeah, that's the thing, when you look at the scripture, Genesis 1:26 and 27 says he made man. He said, let us make man in our own image according to our likeness. And so he says he made them male and female alike. So he made the spirit that he created, because he said, the word says the Father, Yahuwah, is a spirit.
That's
And they
right.
that worship him must worship him in spirit and in truth. So he is a spirit. So if he made the male and female alike, and he said he made them in his own image according to his likeness, then he made them spirit. So they were spirits first. So when he formed man in Genesis 2:2-7, when he formed man from the dust of the ground, and then he said he blew the breath of lives in him. He blew the spirits that was created, the male and female alike. That's why, but that's why Adam was the completion, the complete image of the Father. When he was first created, he had the male and female spirit within that the Father created initially. He didn't just blow the male spirit in him and left the female spirit up there wherever
That's
he
right.
is or whatnot. He
They were
blew.
both
He
there.
put everything in there because Adam was complete
That's
when
right.
he made him.
That's right.
Okay. Then what happens now is, after Adam did everything that the Father did, everything that he was doing with Adam and had him name the animals, do all this stuff,
Right.
he was
Right.
able to do all that because he was made in the image and likeness of the Father. The same thing, you know, we're talking about today. And then after all of that was done, he said, okay, it's not good for you
my son to be alone. So
Right.
he separated them. Now he gave the female spirit a body, and but he made it from the body that he made. He formed from Adam. So Adam didn't
Wait a
recognize.
minute, you said he made a female spirit?
Huh?
See, it wasn't a female or a male spirit. It was just spirit.
Yeah, but he said he made
But they
them
were
male and female alike.
Right.
So it's a spirit.
Right,
So
Right, but male and female, also he's speaking about what, because he said bone of my bone and flesh of my flesh. So you're saying that he had a female spirit and a male spirit?
No, what I'm
within
saying
Adam?
is when he put Adam to sleep and he was giving him the instructions and he took the
Yes.
side of him, when he took the side of him, the spirit that came, that became the female. So he was so he made that into the woman.
Right, the flesh. He
In
took
the
his flesh.
Right, he made the flesh.
Because at this particular point, the Father's speaking about the flesh. He's
Mhm.
not speaking about the spirit right now.
I understand.
Okay.
I understand that. But that's what I'm saying. What coming full circle is when he presented Hawa back to Adam, Adam was able to recognize not the flesh, he recognized the spirit.
Right.
He was able to make that
Right.
connection because they were already
Right.
so enlightened and
They
so
were-
connected to the
God,
Father.
right.
They were already so one. So when he saw, he said, "No, yeah, this is bone of my bone, flesh of my flesh," because she came out of me.
Absolutely.
You know what I mean? She came from me, from my flesh.
That's right.
But he knew the connection was already there. It was
was
already
made.
established because
Right.
yeah.
And that's why that connection is established even prior to getting married.
Right.
That connection is established because you are two spirits, you are two beings.
Yes.
That
Created at
have,
the same time.
right,
Created at
you know, you know that there is a connection.
Right.
Amen?
Amen.
This is why 5-year engagements don't make sense to me either, because I do believe, this is just my belief, that it doesn't take 10 to 15 years for you to court someone to know that they are for you.
Right.
I believe that within a short span of time,
Right.
you can detect whether or not that being is for you.
The very first time I went out with Shay,
What-
I
what-
knew.
But
The
I
Father
just-
too. Yeah.
But I
so-
need to ask you this question. You said that that person should know.
Should know.
Right. What are the markers that that person should know? Because, see, there are a lot of people that do get married very quickly, 4 months, a year, 6 months, and they say, oh, I know this is the person. But there gotta be explicit markers so that they would know, is this really the person? Because you hear that all the time. I knew this was the person I was supposed to marry, but they're finding a year or 2 years later that, is this really the person I was supposed to marry? What are those
Right,
specific
you wanna
markers?
make sure it's in alignment with this, not the world being.
Absolutely.
Spiritual.
Right.
No.
Right, and so what are those markers that you look for? One of them is Philippians 4:8. There's so many different ones. What is this person thinking? Is there discipline in this individual's life? You know, there's so many spiritual things that have to be discerned.
But
That
that
God,
person,
right, the set
both
apart
parties,
character.
shouldn't they, based off what Terry is saying, those spiritual people, not just
Not
people
the
in the
world,
world.
right.
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 They should know those
Distinction.
characteristics,
Correct.
so when they come together, it can be one
Easily
week or
identified.
2 months or 5 months or 5 days or whatever the case is, because they have those markers
But based
within
on,
themselves.
based that is happening, but also there are more divorces within Christianity than there in the world, and they're, and when we're looking at they got married from a spiritual perspective, but there's something still not
Right,
right.
that's still
See,
not
that is still,
spiritual.
right.
They're not fully
Right.
So
submitted.
they're not right.
Yeah.
Now,
So
that's
those
a
are
good
the
word.
kingdom.
That's a
Yeah.
good word.
Those
That's a
that
good
are
word.
kingdom,
Are they
not even
fully
Christianity.
submitted?
Right.
Are they really walking Torah? Are they in the instruction of Yahuwah?
Right.
You see, because you can say you're spiritual, but what are the markers that really determine that person is?
The other thing that we have to also understand is, remember what we were talking about earlier is that during courtship or whatever stage you're at, there's different stages that a man and a woman will meet. And sometimes the woman will meet the man that is supposed to be her husband, but they rush into it too soon and make each other husband and wife before the Father has authorized it. You know what I mean? The Father may have allowed you to meet so that you can grow together to become the husband and wife that you're supposed to be. Like, and the reason why I can say this is because that's what I walked about, that's what I lived with, you know, with Shay. You know, when I first met Shay and I saw her, I thought she was the most beautiful woman I ever seen. But then the other voice said, don't even think about it. I'm like, okay, all right, I left her alone. But then, you know, we started talking, and everything was always all word. The very first time we went anywhere together was from here. I invited her here. And after we left here, we went to go talk. And we spent a considerable amount of time together until probably about midnight, 1 o'clock in the morning. We're out on Fort Lauderdale Beach sitting on the wall talking. And when I took her back to her car, we prayed. And when she left, that's when I knew this is the wife that the Father has for me. This is her. You know what I mean? So I knew from Jump Street that she is the one that I was going to marry. But I couldn't have married her then and there, because neither of us were ready yet, but we already knew. And I knew because the Father let me know first. She didn't know. I told her, I am your husband. Go find out from the Father. And so she went and she sought him. And she went on her fast and stuff, and she got the word. The Father told her, yes. So now we had to go through the process to become the husband. For me, I had to become the husband, and she had to become the wife that he wanted us to be before we came together 1 year ago, like yesterday.
Yes.
So,
Yeah.
yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Amen.
So, you know, but we all, you know, you can meet at different stages, and based on your readiness, you can move, you'll be able to move forward.
And may I say something else? Please don't marry your assignment.
No. Ooh.
Yeah, please don't marry your assignment.
Ooh.
I'm just gonna put that out here today, because this person could be someone that you are to minister to
Yes.
for a short duration of time.
That's right.
But
That's
but that doesn't mean,
You are assigned
mean
eternally to
that you are assigned eternally to that individual. Amen. Amen. Hallelujah. And out of the mouth of 2 or 3 witnesses, it will be established. But make sure
Glory.
that those witnesses are in concert with Yahuwah.
Yes.
Amen. Shalom.
I wanted to say 2 things, Emma. The
Sure.
part of scripture, Genesis 1:27, where the Father Yahuwah says, Elohim created the man in his image.
Yes.
Our Father is both masculine and
And
feminine.
feminine.
Right.
So
Right.
when he made Adam, that's what he was imparting
Yes.
to Adam, the masculine and the feminine force or energy.
That's right.
That was the first thing, and the second thing was when we spoke about Yahuwah Elohim calls, or where you were speaking, when he was performing things in scripture, he was doing it in his, I want to make sure I'm saying this right, plurality. Like, it was
The plurality
Of His
majesty.
Majesty.
Yes, everything.
That's why Elohim is added to Yahuwah. And you're right. In Hebrew, everything is either masculine or feminine. So watch this. Adam and Eve, you have their Adam and Hava, are masculine and feminine, right? And so is our Father. All right? But watch this. When they come together in intimacy,
They
who
become-
would they glorify?
The Father.
The
Because
Father. That's
exactly.
why you can't have 2 men come together or 2 women come together, because it's out of synchronization with what the Father has already determined.
That's why
Ba-
men love
based
sex
on
so
who he
much.
is. Amen. Amen. Shalom. Ahava. Ahava.
Hava.
Amen. Amen. Can we pray? Hallelujah. Hallelujah. Clary, can you close us in prayer, please?
Lord, we thank you for this day. We thank you for the ability to come into your house,
Yes.
Father, and learn and absorb
Yes.
from you, directly from you. It is a privilege to be able to receive only to honor you, but to have the exact image of you, and your image, that your image be seen amongst the people, that we may bring them closer to you. Yeah, thank you for everything that you're doing again. Thank you enough, Father. We plead the Dominic who shall over each and every one of our lives, of our families' lives. And I also ask, Father, that our families may truly see the image of your majesty within us.
Yes.
Thank you, Father.
Yes.
Thank you for your word. It is truly transforming our minds, and the spirit of our minds are being transformed tonight.
Yes.
It is in Yahushua's mighty name. We ask all of these things.
Glory. Amen.
Amen. So what, women, what's one thing that you know for sure that you want to implement, that you may not have implemented, or it's already implemented but you want to work? That's all right. Amen. You don't have to divulge it, but it's something you really think about. And those women who will go through courtship, amen, be very discerning. Let's take an offering. Amen. Amen.
Pick out your heart.
I just have to get it. I'm trying to figure out how to zip it. Staples. Separate.
And I will bring it on Saturday.
It's so funny that I ordered,
Separated.
the lady that me and
Thank
she
you.
studied.
You heard me.
Some Hebrew lessons from her. She has a book called A Wow. So when I saw the title, I'm thinking, maybe this is a good book to read, just to kind of get your mind together. So I got it, and I started reading. It's like a dictionary for Hebrew women that have what she did. She took a survey of words that women would want to know from a spiritual perspective what they mean, and she put them all in Hebrew, and they gave the scriptures and the definition and the meaning according to Hebrew. And reading, and I'm like, this has nothing to do with like a physical house. This has everything to do with me as a woman. And so when I said that today, that mama fell in my head. So he took me out of hard
Okay.
doing some construction.
See, please pray me off. We give you the praise. We give you the glory. We give you the honor. We thank you that we can be a blessing unto you. This is another part of the worship service.
Yeah.
It's giving our tithes and our offering unto you. Father, we pray that you would bless each and every basket that's about to give for the
Yes, I got it, and I said, that's not really my color.
Oh,
Hermano,
Yes,
how's my sister?
Buenas noches, mi hermana.
Everybody, 'cause they're still on.
Bye.
Oh, no, there's only one. I think they are left now.
No, it is, this one is that girl, sprouting seed. But when I first saw it, I thought she was talking about this one right here.
Come on.
You're messing me up.
Messy, Jiggle Jiggle.
Yeah, right, trying to run.
So you are.
Yes, what I'm